Welcome back to Those Happy Places, the podcast that treats theme parks, rides, and attractions like literature. I'm Buddy Duquesne.
And I'm Alice White.
And this week, get ready to strike your colors, you bloomin' cockroaches. We're covering Pirates of the Caribbean.
That's right, we're doing Pirates of the Caribbean, the classic Disneyland attraction. We're going to talk about its place in history, in revisionism, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the changes that have been made to the rides over the years.
Alice, Pirates of the Caribbean is a favorite of ours, isn't it?
Oh, of course. It's a classic.
Especially at Disneyland. We were doing a little bit of comparing before the episode, and we were looking at some of the ride times and the scenes that are present in some versions of the ride versus others. This is a ride that's at Orlando and at Paris and Tokyo. And there's a completely new, different kind of ride based on Pirates of the Caribbean in Shanghai. But the ride in California is by far the longest, clocking in at 15 minutes, 30 seconds long. That's the official count.
That's an incredibly long ride.
Yeah, and when we compared it, the version in Florida is 8.5 minutes. So barely over half the ride time. And we were looking at the two rides, and there's a lot of differences between them, and it really does change the tone.
Yes, they're extremely different in tone and length and variety, and every experience in a Pirates of the Caribbean ride at any of the Disney parks is going to be different. Personally, I think the Disneyland California version, watching them all on YouTube and maybe a little bit of bias, but I think it's the best one.
Yeah, I mean, as it is our home park and it's the one that we know and we love, we feel like when there are things missing, and by being the longest, it has the most content. We feel like when there are things missing, that it makes the ride inferior. When maybe they are valid cuts, who knows? But I feel from a personal standpoint, the pacing of Pirates of the Caribbean in Anaheim is outstanding. It has not been topped. And it really is, at nearly 16 minutes, a ride that feels like a full, not a feature-length film. That's not really what I'm looking for, but a full feature, if that makes any sense. It's got its own story and world and universe, and you have time to live in and breathe that and really kind of get to know it and how it feels and looks.
Yeah, and when the traffic inevitably backs up all of the boats and you're sitting at the last scene for an extra 5 to 10 minutes on top of that, then you really get to know and love that
that last show scene.
That last show scene.
Yeah, you really do. And on top of it all, Pirates of the Caribbean is one of my favorite rides for its capacity. I mean, those boats can hold so many people, and they have it down to a science where they're really just kind of conveyor belting people through. It is not an Omnimover system. Praise the Omnimover.
Praise the Omnimover.
It is a system that accommodates the incredible crowds that Disneyland can sometimes get. And I've regularly gotten in line for Pirates of the Caribbean, looking at this full queue and thinking, there's no way I'm going to be on this in under an hour. And I'm on in 20 minutes. It's just, everything about this ride for me is like, this is how Disneyland can be, how it could be if we thought of these things ahead of time. So overall, it's a great ride, but we do have our criticisms of it. Our kind of deep dive has revealed some things about it that maybe deserve a second look, even by fans. So we hope that we get there today.
Yeah, so let's start with a little bit of the history and some of the text of the ride itself.
Yeah, kind of the show scenes in the order that they're presented and what they contain.
Sure. So the ride opened in Disneyland in 1967, and it was the last ride that was overseen by Walt Disney himself. He died about 3 months before it opened, and so it does have a lot of that, some of that magic to it, and a little bit of a place in Disney fan kind of cult classic status.
Yeah, it almost feels like it's part of the Disney canon, right? Like this is what Walt would have wanted. It was the most cutting edge thing that he ever laid hands on.
He designed the ride system he helped design the ride system with the boats after his display of It's a Small World went over really well at the World's Fair, and after and realizing the remarkable potential of a ride entirely on a boat system, he decided to make it happen for Pirates of the Caribbean because it felt thematically appropriate for, if it's about pirates, it should be on the water. And it has operated continuously since 1967 with only minor closing time. It's only ever been closed for no more than a few months at a time for various renovations and additions.
Yeah, and those renovations and additions are going to be a recurring theme in this episode because that's one of our main focuses on Pirates of the Caribbean, is that it's this thing that feels very classic and timeless and embedded into Disneyland, but at the same time has maybe undergone the most substantial change over time in its content, which is so strange to think about. But this hasn't happened to Haunted Mansion, for example, nor has it really happened to any of the original rides, the day one attractions. They've undergone technology changes, and there's been a little bit of a similar amount of changing in like the Jungle Cruise, but not to the extent that Pirates has changed, not to the full revamping of the story.
No, for the most part, any changes that other rides get have been updates to technology or maybe just a little general cleanup or a reskin. But Pirates has done a lot of seemingly small but ultimately really impactful changes to the show scene. So let's go over the text of the ride itself.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Audiences queue up in New Orleans Square, and as you enter the show building, there are paintings and portraits of various historic pirates, and then they board their boat, which is vaguely pirate themed. I've always thought that the boats were a little lackluster in terms of theming, the current ones at least.
The boats should be painted like proper life rafts or so, like lifeboats or something.
Yeah, instead they just kind of have a wooden look. Yeah, they just kind of look wood. And so anyways, the boat departs, and the boat passes a quiet bayou complete with some shacks and some alligators in the water.
Some nice banjo music
playing. And there's fireflies.
The beautiful firefly effect, which is just a little light on the end of like a wire, but it looks
perfect.
It looks really nice.
And of course, the New Orleans Square main restaurant, or maybe the most famous restaurant at New Orleans Square, the Blue Bayou, has a seating area inside that initial part of the attraction, which I always have loved so much. Alice, the Blue Bayou is amazing. Yes.
It's so nice. It's such a nice, classy restaurant, such a really nice space. Beautiful ambiance. So you go through this absolutely gorgeous bayou, past the Blue Bayou restaurant, past a little shack with a guy sitting in front of it, smoking a pipe, having a grand old time. And you're confronted by a skull mounted onto the wall who warns you about what life ahead of you is like.
Right. Well, there are squalls ahead.
There be squalls ahead.
And yes. Davy Jones waiting for them that don't obey. It's the safety message of the ride, which I've always found so impressive.
So, keep your hands and arms inside the boat.
Yeah, and like, how else do you convey that? I mean, every other ride has to live up to the fact that Pirates of the Caribbean does it once the audience is already on the boat and immersed in the atmosphere, and then it does it with an in-universe skeleton head that like really, really continues to set the mood while conveying the safety message, And does that happen anywhere else? I mean, the ghost host a little bit, right? Don't pull down on the safety bar. I'll lower it for you. Don't take any flash pictures. That is so classic Disneyland. I don't hear or see that on any other ride, though.
No, it's a lot of times it's just the ride operator into a microphone telling you what to do, or a pre-recorded message from just a generic like guy. But or you get the safety video like for Soarin', you get Patrick Warburton in a flight attendant, uniform, giving you, that's in character and in universe, but you're still standing in line while it's happening.
Right,
like
so
in Pirates, you are in the boat.
Yeah, and it feels very much part of the universe. In fact, the reason that you keep your hands and arms inside a boat on Pirates of the Caribbean is not for your own safety. That's the best way to repel boarders. If anybody were to try to get on your boat, that's how you keep them away, by being extra safe. Okay, you guys? And that like kind of bridging of the gap in the mind of like, okay, especially for little kids, if you're scared right now, remember, be extra safe, keep your hands inside the boat. And that keeps everybody like, in the mood, in the moment. And that's so great.
Yeah, that is really good. I love that. And is immediately followed by a drop.
Yeah, this rather intense drop, and Pirates of the Caribbean is a ride with no safety belts or even really places to grab onto the boat. So the drop is rather sudden, and you splash down into this cave where suddenly Yo Ho, Yo Ho, Pirate's Life for Me is playing in this dimly lit, kind of really atmospheric place that you can't see the pirates. There are no pirates yet.
No, it's like a cavern, stalactites and stalagmites coming up from the ceiling and floor, and the song is being sung. That song so well is being sung, but it's echoey and distant.
I would almost describe it as ghostly, but it doesn't have that same haunted feel as like a Haunted Mansion style song, right? It doesn't really feel like it's supposed to be creepy, because it still feels rollicking and so exciting, right? It feels like an adventure movie almost.
Yeah, but it's just a little bit further away. Like, you're not quite there yet.
And that's because you aren't, which is so great.
Because you go through this cavern and you see... Well, and then you do another drop.
Right, there's one more drop, and you drop farther into the cavern, and that's when you see an island with two pirates on, like, a beach. And one is stabbed and standing up against the wall, and another one is stabbed and on the ground. And there's a treasure chest between them. So there's this like clear aura of betrayal and greed that has happened. And we should say that we've already heard the phrase from the skeleton head, "Dead men tell no tales." Right? And this warning that says to you, if you don't make it through this, there's nobody who's going to tell your story. So that warning kind of echoes through our minds, and may indeed echo through the cavern itself. And we see the two dead pirates with this treasure that they never got to like use because they betrayed each other at the last moment.
Yeah, and so you get their betrayal, and you see other skeletons scattered throughout this place, sometimes surrounded by treasure, sometimes clearly done in by some of their own, with a pirate cutlass sticking through their rib cage. And but a lot of them, as you keep going, you see these show scenes that are the pirates there's a pirate captain in a huge luxurious bed looking at a treasure map surrounded by gold and luxurious fabrics, and then there's another pirate on top of a huge mound of treasure. Two pirates who are guzzling rum out of a bottle that's just, the rum is just falling through their ribs.
Yeah.
Because they're dead now, but the rum is still flowing. And this kind of greed and gluttony and all of these sins that these pirates represent have clearly brought their doom.
Yeah, and they've all maybe achieved what a pirate's goal is, right? Which is like having unlimited rum, or having a luxurious bed and seeking out more treasures and being the captain, or standing atop a pile of treasure. But in the end, they all died and became skeletons right there on the spot while enjoying that thing that they thought they wanted.
Going through their dangerous pirate lives and their pirate vices that ultimately kill them.
Yeah.
Very intense.
And as we pass that last pile of treasure, we hear a ghostly voice that tells us, this is now, you're in this story. You've seen the cursed treasure. This will be the last friendly voice you hear. And then we hear echoing again, dead men tell no tales, right? As if to say, this happened. It might happen to you. Watch out. And as we pass through that tunnel, that's when the pirates become to kind of come to life, as it were.
Right. You hear one of the voices say, you say you're not afraid of evil curses. Have ye no fear of evil curses, says you. Properly warned ye be, says I. So he's saying you've been warned. Like, there's a curse on this place. And then in this incredibly cool new piece of tech, this like very next thing you see was just installed 6 months ago. A skeleton that turns into a flesh and blood pirate right in front of your eye.
It's so incredible. It's a really great effect. I think it's achieved with mirrors, but I'm actually not sure because there's no obvious mirror. It really looks like as you rotate around this pirate, he goes from skeleton to person, and there's no way to see really how they do it. It's incredible. But
it's so cool.
Alice, I think now would be a good time to pause because we've talked about half of the ride, right?
Yeah.
And we've talked a lot about how the skeletons and the kind of myth making of this moment and the curse and all of this. We should say that there's a sizable portion of the audience of Pirates of the Caribbean, and there's certainly evidence to back this up. People say that this is a ride told in reverse. That we kind of start in a later period in New Orleans, then we drop into the cave and we see the aftermath of the pirate era. And then we kind of see the pirates in their heyday. So we see these things kind of happen in 3 distinct chunks, but in reverse.
Yeah, where you kind of do, maybe not even just in reverse, but like in flashback. You go from, oh, this is how the pirates end. Here's how they start. And so you're not like, not in true reverse, but you see their end and then it flashes all the way back to the beginning, how their raid on the, the island starts and how they jump in and get the mayor and stuff like that, where that's the beginning of their raid. So you've gone all the way back in time to their heyday. It's told in flashback. And and told backwards, or at least that's what I thought it would be, or what I thought the text was. But with this addition of this new piece, with this new pirate that turns from a skeleton to a flesh and blood right in front of your face, while you hear the warning, the old warning of you're not afraid of evil curses. Well, you've been warned. Combined with the text of the film, Pirates of the Caribbean, you combine those things together and suddenly the text of this ride is no longer, here's a flashback. It's, here are cursed pirates attacking now. Now you're seeing this happen in real time.
Yeah, cursed skeleton pirates that were just waiting for the curse to take hold so that they could leap back into life.
And you here have witnessed the minute that the curse is taken hold.
Okay, fair enough. That reading is fair enough. I still think it's questionable whether that's what, the Imagineers who decided to put that scene there were trying to communicate. I think you could still complicate that question, because I still think that the reverse order reading of the ride is very valid, and when you look at it that way, it kind of maintains a little bit more of the ride's theming, as opposed to tying it into our more modern understanding of the canon of the movies, which we should mention will come up later.
Yeah, we'll talk about the movies. But no, I agree with you, because I think, and and we'll come back to this also, but I think this ride being read as a morality tale against the dangers of piracy, turning it into, oh, well, it look at all these skeletons and now they're attacking, is like almost too simple of a story. It's like a sci-fi fantasy version of this pirate story instead of a, well, here's where they all died. Do you want to see how they got there? Kind of thing.
Yeah. And it seems to be a bit of a betrayal of that original thought, right? This idea that we can present pirates as fun and exciting, but also warn about the dangers.
Right. Yeah. And now it's now no longer, well, if you read it literally, and if that's how you choose to read that new scene, it could be now that it's no longer a warning. Now it's just you're in an adventure from the beginning.
Yeah.
And you're going to learn a lesson at the end, but it's
a different lesson.
It's a different lesson about curses.
Yeah. So let's jump back into the text of the ride, right? So as we pass this skeleton to not skeleton pirate, we are immediately seeing the pirate ship attacking the city. Back in the day, it was a generic pirate captain shouting, "Strike your colors, you bloomin' cockroaches." Now it is Captain Barbossa, as portrayed in the films by Jeffrey Rush, and here he recorded the lines for the animatronic.
Yes.
And they're bombarding the city with... He's
looking for Jack Sparrow.
Right. He wants Captain Jack Sparrow. So originally the pirates were after the treasure, whatever that treasure may be. Now they're after Jack Sparrow, and do keep that kind of dichotomy in mind for a later section. So we see the attack happening. It's a really cool scene, by the way, Alice. Did you know that the pirate ship is fully painted and built all the way around?
Is it really? It's not just a facade?
It's not a facade. Disney insisted that they build a scale pirate ship. Of course, it's not full scale, right?
Right.
But they build a full-scale pirate ship all the way around. An entire scale pirate ship. That's better. Build it all the way around, really work on all the details, even though guests would never see a good, at least, third of the ship. So it is completely built, and the walls of the Spanish town, or rather Spanish colony town, are huge and lifelike, and you can see the cannons firing on both sides. You can sometimes feel blasts of air from the cannonballs flying between. It's very cool.
Yes.
There's shadows showing an awesome sword fight. It's a great scene. It's one of my favorites in all of theme parks, just for its scale and how exciting it is.
That room feels enormous, and the way that the sky is painted to just black as far as you can see. As far as you know, that room is cavernous. Because you can't see the corners of the room.
It very well might be. I have no idea the actual scale. That's how effective the illusion is.
Yeah, between the lighting and the distractions and how big the walls and ship are. Yeah, it could be a huge room. I have no idea.
So we go through this battle scene, and eventually we are back in the city, where we see the pirates have kind of already taken over, right? Clearly they won that fight. So we've got this scene where the mayor of the city is tied up and being dunked repeatedly into the well.
Poor Carlos.
I know. And he keeps getting dragged back out of the well, presumably just before he drowns. He's spitting out water, and the pirates are like, "Where's Jack Sparrow?"
And his wife is pleading, don't tell him. And then they shoot at her and she screams, and it's an intense moment. But because they're looking for Jack Sparrow.
It's played for laughs, though. Isn't that interesting? Like, the moment has never felt scary to me. It has always felt like a fun pirate thing. They've got,
let's just dunk a guy in a well. Haha.
Yeah, they've got a guy standing there that the captain-y dude that's there. He's not the captain because he's not Barbossa, but there's a guy who's got like a captain's sort of swagger and clothes. He's like, "Pipe him aloft, matey," and then the guy on the flute like plays a little tune so that they can pull him up, and he can like hear music as he goes up, or what? I don't know what the point of this is.
Make like sound effects, like, oh, here he comes.
Up comes the guy, and he's like, I'll never talk. And his wife is like, don't tell him, Carlos. It doesn't make sense to me anymore, though, with the Jack Sparrow lines. Because, like, why are these people protecting Jack? Nobody should protect Jack. You should betray Jack. Jack actually factors that into his plans, and it actually helps him when you betray him, it seems, based on the films. So I don't understand why they're protecting Jack, because it used to be just like, where's the treasure, right? Tell us where the treasure is or else. And the wife is like, don't tell him, Carlos, we gotta protect the treasure. And that makes a little bit more sense. At least it could be that they had the town treasure and they were in charge of it. But protecting Jack Sparrow does not make a lot of sense to me.
No, not really. And to top it all off, Jack Sparrow's literally right there.
Yeah, the mayor could just be like, oh, he's behind you.
Because he is. He's hiding behind a stack of dresses, like behind like dresses on a clothesline, I think. And he's an incredibly lifelike animatronic.
Yeah, we should say that these animatronics of Jack are, of course, are new, and animatronic technology has apparently been advancing all along while we weren't looking, and this one looks amazing. And so do the other Jack Sparrows and some of the other new additions. They're incredibly lifelike, very cool movement, and very evocative of the actual performance.
Yeah, he swaggers along, or the way that he turns his head looks very much like the portrayal of him in the film. I want to point out, I was talking about this earlier, it's very strange cognitively to look at that brand new animatronic amongst the ancient animatronics from the 60s.
The ancient year of 1967.
You know what I mean? It's strange to see how far it's come and how new he looks, and it's almost indicative kind of how I feel about the changes in general. Like, this brand new shiny pretty thing doesn't kind of feel like it belongs there.
Yeah, it doesn't jive. It doesn't fit in. And it's maybe where the ride, as sacred as we see it in some ways, may have benefited from a full-on refurbishment, but it hasn't ever gotten that. Instead, it's gotten these small bits and pieces dropped in kind of one at a time or two at a time, and it leaves it in the state that it's in now, which, to be honest, is actually confusing too. We have to keep in our minds all of the different ways that this ride has been in order to understand it fully, and we can't. There are so many small, minute details that have over time been changed, and as a result, we've kind of got a Ship of Theseus situation here. Is it even the same attraction anymore? If you've taken out this and changed this and switched this out, is it the same attraction? Does it tell the same story? Kinda. A little, but also not really. So this is that first moment. I mean, apart from the Barbossa scene, which could very easily be overlooked, but this has changed the context, right? Now it's not about treasure. Now it's about this search for Jack. We gotta have Jack Sparrow. We'll torture the mayor until we find him, right? So that's a lot.
Yeah, so we continue. The pirates are causing lots of mayhem, and then there's the auction scene.
Right, which until recently was a bride auction.
Yes, take a wench for a wife.
Right, so they were auctioning off these women that had been captured in the sacking of the city, and the joke was that there was a rather stout-hearted woman who nobody wanted to bid on, and there was a very curvaceous redhead who everybody did want to bid on. And that was a scene in a Disney ride until the year 2018.
Yes, looking back on it, I think we didn't really realize as children. It was, like you said, like that was the joke. Didn't realize when we were children how problematic that obviously is.
Right. And it's very unfunny in retrospect, and we did not need a human auction in the year 2018. And
so now we don't have one anymore.
And probably before that, we didn't need a human auction. But this is the year that we made that progress. So, okay. So now we have something else. Now they're auctioning merchandise. Things.
It says the sign, I think, instead says something like surrender your goods or surrender your items. Like people are carrying candlesticks and livestock and anything of value. They're now in a line. They have to bring it up so that the pirates can auction it off to other pirates.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? I feel like they should like take it away and then maybe split it up, but whatever. So they've got that same stout-hearted woman who is selling her chickens, but nobody wants the chickens. Now they want the rum. And the redhead has been replaced by Red, a pirate character that has the rum.
And she's a tough lady. She's got her cutlass. She's got her cool hat, her awesome dress. She looks great, and she is encouraging her men to ask for more rum.
Yeah, we want the rum.
She's the rum lady.
Yeah, and she indeed does have all the rum. And she's another example of one of those new animatronics that when you compare them to the ones around her, she looks way better. And that is removing a little bit in terms of immersion, right?
Yeah, a little. She's not as good as the Jack one, just like Barbossa's not as good. The Jack ones just seem to have another layer to them. That's maybe because Jack Sparrow in the films is so is such a character, so
distinct in movement.
Yeah, that. But yeah, so Red's there, and she's got her sword and everything, and she looks great. So now we've taken this old, outdated, problematic show scene, and we've turned it into a little bit of we've got this cool woman here, and we're celebrating women here for a moment.
Celebrating women in piracy.
Even though she's still definitely a bad guy.
Yeah.
And we're going to learn our lesson about pirates by the end. But I don't know, when I was writing the ride and there she was, I was proud of her. I was like, yeah, you go, girl. Like, you get your rum.
She's the only female pirate in the entire attraction.
Yes.
I almost said in the film, but that is another thing that kind of problematizes talking about Pirates of the Caribbean is we also have to take into account the films, and it's a lot.
It's a lot to talk about.
So she's the only female pirate in the attraction, and that means something. It does mean something to have that representation and to acknowledge there were lady pirates. In fact, in the queue, there are paintings of lady pirates, very infamous ones. And now
Bonnie and Mary Read.
They've added Red as well.
Oh, good.
So that's really cool. So then, past the auction scene, we see the pirates begin singing Yo-Ho as they sack the city. So Yo-Ho, Yo-Ho, a pirate's life for me. They start taking even more things out of the city, and now they're chasing the residents.
Oh, all right. Yeah, chasing the residents first.
Yeah.
In the chasing of the residents of the town scene, this is another example of just like a little change that changes the entire text of this scene. The pirates originally were shown chasing women around the house. It's like this big, beautiful, like plantation style home where you see them through the windows chasing women around while the women scream. And now, just by adding a little prop here, a little prop there, and switching
a couple of things
around, now it's every single pirate is chasing after a woman who is holding some sort of food. She's got a whole chicken on a plate. She's got a whole cake. Or in the one scene where the woman is chasing the pirate around and she's reaching for him like she really wants him, and he's running away like scared for his life.
And we should mention that the joke is that's that same stout-hearted lady from before.
Yes.
So the joke has somehow been removed and maintained, which is very interesting indeed.
Yeah, that's a little bit touchy. So now instead of so now we've removed this problem in 2 show scenes in a row. We've removed this problem of objectifying the female characters. And instead, though, we've kind of washed over the idea that now all they want is food, but then we still have the one female character that is still getting made fun of because she is the biggest one. She's the like, you keep saying stout-hearted, but let's be real, the joke was always that she's fat.
Yeah.
And that is unfortunate. It is like still something that a lot of pieces of media think it's okay to make fun of someone for being. And it's all over, all over movies and TV. And here it is again, like, and no, we don't get her on sale, but we still see her chasing around a pirate who wants nothing to do with her. He's running away and screaming, like being with her would be the, like the opposite of anything he's ever wanted.
That would be really bad. And
be very bad.
It's unconscionable. It's something that I can't believe we're having to talk about. And I do apologize for dancing around by saying stout-hearted.
No,
I just,
but that's what they call her in the text. That's what the auctioneer character always referred to her as. So I get the impulse to use that.
The winsome wench.
The word. Yeah.
Strike your colors, dearie.
And I don't know. She's precious. She's adorable. And then she's like, "Oh, look at this guy pirate. I want him." And she's the only one that's not, like, all of the other women are running around holding food, and she's the only one who's chasing after a person.
She's got agency. And
yet the joke still remains, oh, like, not even a pirate would want her.
Oof.
Like, that, right? Like, that was the text of the auction too. Like, they're all after these women and all of this pirate's booty, and yet no one wants her. It's a hard thing to recognize in a ride and in a IP even that I really love and respect so much. It's hard to recognize that as real.
It is.
Then they start burning the city down.
Of course, because
they're still singing.
Once you've sacked it, you must burn it. That's the rules of piracy.
Sure. And it's a really cool effects how they make the whole place look like it's on fire. I think I always thought it was really pretty, all the reds and oranges and golds and stuff throughout, and every single building's on fire, and they've got the trees caught on fire, and the sky is filling with smoke, and the pirates are just getting drunker and drunker and drunker and drunker with these huge bottles of rum in their hand as they burn everything around them.
It's easily the most destructive looking scene in the entire thing, and it kind of shows, like, piracy has this inevitable end, right? It's destructive. The town was still standing until there was nothing left to take, and then they burned it down. And they were, like, bad at it too, because there's the one guy who's really drunk and has the bottle that's on fire. And he's like, and that's another small revision that used to just be rum. Now it has a little fire thing coming out of it, so now it's like an explosive, I guess.
Like a Molotov cocktail,
right? But he's, like, also still drunk, so it's like a weird change. Why remove the reference to alcohol but keep the reference to bombs? It's weird.
But then you've got the guy is so drunk he's literally sleeping in a pigsty. You've got the one guy so drunk he's about to fall off the ledge, and he's got his dirty foot hanging.
I'm talking about that same guy.
Oh,
That's
is he holding
guy.
That's the guy who's holding the bomb?
Yeah.
Weird. I don't think I ever noticed. I'm too busy looking at how nasty his foot is.
His feet are so nasty, though. That's a great piece of animatronic prosthetic, I guess, is how you might describe it.
It's like a really incredible detail. Like, they didn't have to put that much detail into his foot, but they realized how close it was to people's faces. So they put a bunch of detail into it, and it's gross.
So we go through the burning city, and then we see the now infamous pirates trying to escape prison scene. There are some skeleton pirates that have clearly died there, and then some pirates who are trying to get out, and the dog has the keys. So they're like, come over here, dog, give us the keys. And the dog doesn't, because the dog is an animatronic that has been there since 1967. Also,
the dog is smart and knows better than to let the pirates out of jail.
Don't help pirates. Dogs know that.
Dogs are smarter and better than all of us.
So then we go through another room where things are burning and crackling and things are almost going to fall on us. And then we see our last pirates of the show. They are firing guns at each other over the audience's head, at explosive barrels. They're all clearly still drunk. It's hilarious, but also kind of terrifying.
It's very terrifying because one of them is leaning really heavily on a lever that is controlling a pulley that has like a giant crate that's dangling over where the boats go. So you're like, if he falls down too drunk, then that crate is going to come crashing down on top of somebody. And not
to mention if either of them misses and hits somebody, or if they hit each other with their guns.
They're just firing blindly and wildly into the room, trying to kill each other, but not really.
Maybe
they're just so drunk. They're like, haha, shooting guns is fun.
It's a lot. That scene's a lot too.
There's a lot going on, but they have, like when one of the bullets ricochets off something, it makes the armor pieces in the background move and shake a little.
Ka-quing.
And one of those has the hidden Mickey on it.
That is true. That is where one of the hidden Mickeys is. And
but then you're gone. Then you escape. You sail right between them as they're trying to kill each other. But you leave them and head up the hill, knowing that any minute now, either they're going to shoot each other or they're going to shoot the big crate full of explosives,
or the room will collapse or something. They're not getting out of that.
They're not getting out of it. Everything's on fire. Still, everything is on fire.
Still.
And they are in a room full of TNT. That's not great.
No, that's not going to work. Now, we start to ascend then back up towards normal life, and we see Jack Sparrow, who has evaded capture for the rest of the ride. And
covered in treasure.
He's got all the treasure, and he's singing Yo-Ho, A Pirate's Life for Me, and he's got a few things to say to the audience, like a toast to piracy. And, it worked out for me. I beat all the bad guys, or all the other pirates.
Many shiny rewards.
Right? It's many shiny rewards. I shall use this paltry sum as a stipend to cover my expenses. It's funny. It's a silly little scene. Now, we should talk about what used to be there.
Yeah. What used to be there was a couple of pirates escaping or attempting to escape with treasure.
A big chest of treasure.
A huge chest of treasure.
About as big as the two of them combined.
And they cannot move it. They're straining and grunting. I think the one guy, he was lifting with his lower back. Do you remember how
he's got his
whole,
back to it and he's pushing.
And they're just grunting and going, oh, come on. They're trying to push this enormous chest out of the way, and they're not going anywhere. Things are spilling out of the chest like they're going to lose everything that they have, but they just keep pushing.
And they pushed and pushed and pushed for more than 30 years and never made any progress. And I know that's kind of meta, because it's an attraction, and of course not, right?
And they're not real, they're animatronic, yeah.
Right. But at the same time, it always spoke to me that every time I went through the ride and saw them, they hadn't moved. And they weren't going to. These characters were stuck. And it was because of the treasure. If they would just stop pushing the treasure, they would move on.
And they would make it out alive, unlike their brethren who are about to die.
Right. And of course, we have to remember that dead men tell no tales. And that last little kick is like, even these guys who lucked out and made it all the way here, they're doomed too. And that's a downer of an ending. And it's kind of the complete opposite of Jack, wreathed in jewels and gold, being like, I did it! I win!
Yeah.
So there's, Alice, we've talked about this ride for a while because it is a long ride and it's dense and there's a lot to say about it. And we've talked about some of the smaller and bigger changes that have happened since the ride has opened. And now I think it's finally time to talk about our term of the day.
Right. Our term of the day is revisionism.
Revisionism. And revisionism is a complicated term. It can be loosely defined as a policy of modification of one's attitude to a previously accepted situation or point of view. So any changing of mind over time can be referred to as revisionism, but that's not really what we mean when we talk about it, right? Right. We typically apply revisionism to politics or historical study. In the realm of politics, when we say revisionism, we mean changing your policy or principles once those beliefs are deemed no longer beneficial. So think 1984. We've always been at war with East Asia or Eurasia, whatever they say they've always been at war with.
Honestly, both.
Yes, it's a policy of revisionism. We've always been at war with Oceania. Oh, what do you mean they were our allies? Well, not anymore. We've always been at war with them. That's an example of revisionism in literature. Right. In history, we talk about revisionism when we refer to reinterpreting historical records, either by challenging the accepted orthodox views held by scholars or by introducing contrary evidence or reinterpreting motivations and decisions of the people involved. And this is an extremely problematic process. Not to say that there aren't good people with good intentions who try to revise the record to be more accurate, but we often refer to historical revisionism in a negative way, right? Right. As a tool to kind of sort of, quote unquote, edit out willful cruelty or the perpetration of war crimes. And I'm sure you could come up with any number of examples. But this is generally the work of, fascists, and that's bad. So historical revisionism has been extremely negative. Now, with Pirates of the Caribbean, Alice, I think we've got 2 layers of revisionism happening.
Right. So our 2 layers of revisionism here are revisionism and the idea of pirates, and revisionism and the idea of the ride Pirates of the Caribbean.
So they are 2 different things. We sometimes say pirates when we mean the ride Pirates of the Caribbean. We'll try to keep them separate, at least in this section. So here we're just talking about the concept of pirates and piracy. Yes.
Pirates and piracy have clearly been revised here for palatability and for practicality. The attraction resembles classic pirate films like or literature like Treasure Island. We're meant to understand that these are fanciful versions of a group of people that only kind of barely existed in reality. What we know about pirates and what we know about privateering and other such exploits, we've kind of rolled them all up into one big stereotype of a pirate.
Right. The idea of the hook for a hand and the big feathered hat and the peg leg and the eye patch and the avast mateys and like all of this like accoutrement of piracy is not reflective of the historic period of piracy specifically at that time and place.
No, not at all. It's not even like piracy, like not even just for that time and place. It's ignoring the piracy that happened in other parts of the world and legalized piracy like privateering and types of pirates that were only around to do like blockading of different ports and stuff like that. Like there's so much to it, and really all we get from the ride is, and from other classic literatures like that, is like a general, let's cram a bunch of stereotypes, all the like cool stereotypes into one. It's the same reason why we have a cultural image in our heads of what a cowboy looks like, or a medieval knight in shining armor. Like those are the same kind of, they were professions and they were real people, but isn't it cooler now looking back if we combine all the stereotypes into one thing?
Right. And Disney is kind of notorious for kind of exploiting these popular images for the benefit of his media, right? I mean, like, he was a big fan of Treasure Island and other pirate literature, and he was a big fan of adventure novels and stuff like that, as we talked about with Jungle Cruise, right?
Right.
And, you know, he was a big fan of cowboys and that sort of thing. And they made a lot of these kinds of movies. And so as a result, they were reflected in the theme park. And, you know, it's simplified, sanitized, made adventurous and entertaining for kids and families to enjoy and to make believe and pretend. And it's not historic. This is not a museum. It is not a pirate-themed museum, as much as we wish it might be, because then piracy would be fun and exciting. But it wasn't. It was grim and dark and dirty and evil and exploitative and violent.
So in the same vein that you say it's not a museum, it's not a pirate museum, it's not historically accurate, in that same way, the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction has gotten a lot of criticism for some of the changes that they've made, specifically the ones to make the ride less problematic and less objectifying towards women. A lot of people have criticized the ride and Disney for, they say you're whitewashing the idea of pirates. You're saying you're making it seem sanitary and clean and not how it really was. When you remove these ideas, you're not letting the audience see how life really was for a pirate back then. But that was never really the case here, was it? This was not supposed to be an actual look at actual piracy, was
Absolutely not. And if it was, then it was always harmful to that idea, right? It was always a bad depiction of piracy. What has happened is we have had a couple of changes to the ride that have changed based on audience attitudes, audience needs. That's another reason for revising the ride. It has been revised and reworked for both audience attitudes and needs over time, and for financial reasons. And I think the ones that were more for changing so that we are less problematic and more inclusive are absolutely valid. These are good changes that we needed to make and perhaps still need to continue to make to this attraction.
Right. We are treating women better. We are showing fewer actual atrocities in the name of the fact that 51% of people in the world are women, and we don't want to alienate women from this experience. Right. Because it's 2018. We're smarter now. We're better now. we can enjoy a good pirate ride and a good moral story without showing the depiction of actual harm.
Yeah, and
human trafficking.
That's the thing. This was never a ride that was bloody or grim or violent. It was a ride that depicted scenes of gender-based harm, though, and that's not okay. So we can see the difference between making a change because of historical accuracy, whatever that means in this fantasy pirate realm, because let's be real, this is a fantasy about skeletons. Let's keep this in mind, guys. And, there's a difference between changing it and calling historical accuracy, or changing it and just recognizing that this is, all in good fun, and this is to enhance that fun.
Right. Because it is all in good fun, but we are learning a lesson here. And the lesson is not a look at this museum of how pirates actually treated people. The lesson we're learning here, or the lesson we were learning here with the original theme of the attraction, was greed literally kills.
Greed kills. It's like, it reads like a DARE slogan. Like, hey kids, greed, not even once. But like, it is, right? That's the message. Dead men tell no tales, and all of these pirates search for the same treasure. And the only real curse was their greed. If we remove the context of like the curse of the Black Pearl and cursed gold and all of that, the curse is when you see treasure, you become obsessed with it and it ends up killing you.
Yeah, either you betray your friends and your friends betray you and you end up killing each other like we saw on the beach at the beginning of the ride, or you become enthralled by it, like the captain in his bedchamber, like dying in his bed because he, is so obsessed with the treasure he doesn't even get out of bed. He just dies with his magnifying glass in hand. Or you doom yourself in trying to keep too much of it, as we see in the end scene, and the pirates trying with all of their might to get this huge chest up the hill, where they literally become the myth of Sisyphus in this moment. You're going to keep rolling this up the hill and you're never going to make your destination. You're never going to get it, because if you are greedy, what you have in that giant chest is not going to be enough. And the sin here that we're told not to fall into, this trap we're not going to fall into, is the sin of greed.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking right now as you talk about it, like, man, empty the chest a little. They'd be able to get away. Just a little, right? You wouldn't even have to lose it all. But like, that's the problem. That's the curse of the treasure. It keeps you from noticing that. It makes you say, I need as much of this as I can get. It destroyed an entire city, and it destroyed the lives of all of the pirates as well. And that's the curse. That's the moral. Don't be greedy. Now, right. If we say what is the revised moral, when we have added in the connection to the films, what are we left with?
Well, now that we don't have that end scene, and now we end with seeing Jack Sparrow with a crown on a throne of gold, the new text of the ride is now, come hang out with our cool pirate friends, win a bunch of gold at the end with Jack. No lesson is learned. No warning is given. I mean, sure, those guys, those other pirates, well, they messed up. They weren't smart like Jack.
They were dummies. So they couldn't catch Jack.
They were dummies. They couldn't catch Jack, and they're all going to die for being not Jack Sparrow. Jack Sparrow is our hero, and he's living to the end, and he's going to live forever with all of his cool treasure. And he's your friend. He's your buddy. He addresses you at the end.
Yeah, he's like, hey, guys, I did it. Did you notice how I did it?
I'm so
smart.
I'm so smart. Look at all my cool treasure. I win. His greed is rewarded.
I'm the Bugs Bunny of piracy. I did it. Everybody else is an idiot. But okay, let's step back for a second. Let's think business, right? So why is Jack Sparrow there? Because of the adaptation, Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl, which released in 2003, featuring Johnny Depp as Captain Jack Sparrow, recently in the news, out as Jack Sparrow from the series.
Yes.
But, it was a very popular performance that grossed many dollars in the theater. So many indeed that we got four sequels. There was Dead Man's Chest.
With more coming.
Right, with more coming, presumably without Depp as Jack Sparrow, which, probably about time.
Yeah.
So there was Dead Man's Chest, At World's End, On Strangers' Tides, and finally Dead Men Tell No Tales in 2017, which landed with such a resounding thud in theaters that I don't even really remember that it happened.
Yeah, I saw it.
Was it any good?
No.
Oh.
No,
movie review podcast, but
no, I very strongly disliked it. almost as much as I disliked On Stranger Tides,
which was
I think
also a mistake film.
I think it was where I think On Stranger Tides was worse, but
wow.
But I love the first one.
Yeah,
I even really like the second one.
The first Pirates of the Caribbean film, Curse of the Black Pearl, in many ways redefined the pirates genre and indeed kind of the adventure film genre in general for the new era that it kind of kicked off on its own. I mean, we had Lord of the Rings coming out around the same time. So we had a kind of a rebirth of the fantasy genre. Meanwhile, we're getting these Pirates movies that are each about 3 hours long and have this amazing sense of scale and great visual effects. And it really did seem like everything was going really well. This was a trend that could not end. And of course, at World's End 2007 really did kind of signal that end, or, you know, if you were paying attention, it did. That movie was not as critically acclaimed. It has a lot of narrative problems. It kind of got too big for its own britches. And then you know, the series kind of limped forward from there with a new film every 4 to 5 to 6 years. So, you know, piracy, it was a big deal starting in 2003.
Yeah, and Disney leaned really heavily into merch and shirts, and that itty bitty little gift shop at the end of Pirates of the Caribbean and Disneyland suddenly was like the hip hot place to be. Like they expanded that gift shop after that. Like they took over half of New Orleans Square because they couldn't sell enough Pirates merch after the first film came out. Like,
right, and suddenly
it was so popular.
Suddenly the pirate cutlass, which you could always buy, was like a hot seller. And, you know, suddenly people like pirates again. Pirates are cool again. And that meant, I think that meant from a business perspective, that the old idea of Pirates of the Caribbean, which indeed was iconic in many ways to this old idea of piracy as portrayed in the media and films of the time, needed an update. And Jack Sparrow was, of course, a big character and very iconic of the new films, so we throw in some new animatronics. We change some dialogue around. We make it about Jack. And we inevitably change the tone and meaning of the ride.
Yeah, because now it's no longer about the dangers of greed and the Sisyphean nature of wanting all of this treasure. Now it's about having an adventure with your pirate friends. Now it's about the characters you love and seeing Jack Sparrow winning the pirate game, and it's taken away from the morality tale that the plot was trying to tell you. It made it more commercial. It made it more gimmicky. They started throwing in things like Davy Jones on the mist. They projected Davy Jones's face on like a wall of mist that you sailed through.
Which thankfully that effect has been removed permanently, but it was a weird moment, right? It
was kind of cool when it started, but it never worked right. It kept breaking, or it like just wouldn't show up at all.
Right.
I remember thinking how cool it was when it started, but the mist never flowed exactly straight downward enough for the projection to be clear and stuff like that. Now they've put the old voices back in and given us that really cool pirate effect. But the ride became like an experiment, like a wall for Disney to throw spaghetti at to see what stuck.
And we should say, and Alice, this may be a transition into kind of our last point, but this is the only ride that spawned a $3.7 billion film franchise.
It is.
No other attraction, Disneyland or otherwise, has done that. There have been attractions based on multi-billion-dollar film franchises, such as Star Tours, sure. But no other ride has gone from referencing films to then having a film made about it that in many ways outstripped the popularity of the original attraction, and then have that film series come back and, you know, change the attraction in meaningful ways. The Country Bear Jamboree movie was so bad that they closed the ride.
At Disneyland.
The Haunted Mansion film was so bad that it is literally forgotten. It like people are like, wait, there was a Haunted Mansion ride, and it started Haunted Mansion film, and it starred Eddie Murphy. That must have been a big deal. No, not really.
Nope, it didn't change or affect the ride at all. I feel like they never even tried to change or affect the ride.
No, in maybe one or two small ways they added a reference, but it wasn't coming back and making the ride different. And that is what Pirates of the Caribbean did. Pirates of the Caribbean, the film series, did. Yeah. And that's actually incredible.
The only other thing I think might be comparable, but maybe it's a little different just based on the nature of the ride itself. But the only thing I can think of that did this would maybe be Star Tours.
And that's just because Star Tours has affected in-universe things.
But the Star Tours was, of course, Star Wars was a movie and then it became a ride, but then more movies came out and the ride changed to match those movies, I guess is what I mean.
Yeah, and that is a substantial change based on changes in media and technology. But
I think that was the nature of the ride, and especially it being newer than Pirates of the Caribbean and inherently about the, like when they changed it the first time, it to make it like the variant ride.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily about being more like the movie, but it was about expanding the universe, and it's just different.
Yeah, it's a completely different situation. Star Tours was always referential
yes.
to a very distinct text of film. Pirates of the Caribbean was referential to a style, a genre, but
right.
Then for it to become referential to itself, because the first three movies have tons of references to the original attraction. There's the jail scene. They sing the song. They even say it'd be too late to alter course before they go over a waterfall. Like there are references, clear references that are like, this is based on that ride, kind of. But honestly, the film isn't really based on the ride, except that there is a theme in the first film, Curse of the Black Pearl, about greed and about how their greed cursed them.
Yeah. And
that's it. Like, that's the extent of the thematic resonance between the series and the ride.
But now the ride has ignored it.
Right, and now the ride has dropped that in favor of a fun adventure with Jack and your friends. So, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, and now I'm a little mad. And we never get mad on the pod, but like now I'm a little mad.
We try as hard as we can to be as positive as we can, and we also try not to be new is always bad kind of people. I think we've dabbled in that in our past as teenagers and stuff. The idea of all remakes are bad, all covers of music are all bad. I feel like everybody might go through that, but we try really hard, especially in this podcast, to see the positives in updating and new things and trying and taking risks and trying to be better, and how theme parks can do that. We love Mission Breakout, for example. While that wasn't as popular, I think, amongst other Disney fans. We're trying really hard to be better than that. But these changes on this ride just feel really corporate, and they feel really safe. It's not a cool change to like try something new and daring. It's just really safe. Like, here's this incredibly profitable IP, and we'll just lean into it really heavily. It's hard to remain positive when you see things like that, especially when they change not just what you see, but what like you're supposed to feel at the end of the ride.
Yeah, and they've changed the ride for the right reasons as well, which is part of what makes it so frustrating to talk about. There are good changes. They can do it. There are bad changes, and it's hard to take them apart from each other because they're so intertwined.
Yeah. Frustrating. But I'll still ride it 150 more times. If I could just sit on it and ride it through a couple of times, I would. Great way to spend a nice cool afternoon and a hot day at Disneyland.
It is an amazing 20-minute break if you get on
and
it.
It smells good.
Yeah, it's got that Disney water smell. which you can't discount the appeal of the Disney water smell.
No, it's like a button straight to my nostalgia meter. Like, makes it go crazy.
Yeah.
And I like it, and I like it, and I'll continue to like it. But just because I like it doesn't mean I can't wish for it to do better.
Right. Well, Alice, it seems like our conversation about Pirates of the Caribbean and revisionism and revising and adaptation have come to a close.
That's right. But before we go, we just wanted to make sure that we sent out some shout outs to some listeners. And we wanted to engage all of you who are listening. First of all, thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. And we've gotten some really good feedback and messages and conversations on our Discord server.
Yeah, I mean, our Discord has been so good and active lately, and I want to send some special shout outs to our friends and fellow podcasters who are on there right now, talking with us. Of course, TH Ponders and Charles Gustine of Accession and the Iconography podcast, respectively, are on there, and they are so much fun to talk about theme parks with. We also have Will Williams, who you all heard on the last episode. She's hanging out with us. We've got Katie and Anne, who are hilarious, great contributors on the Discord as well. And a couple of new people like Lina, who has just shown up and who has already contributed great stuff. We share theme park news, theme park just thoughts and stuff. We had this great conversation about Pandora at Walt Disney World. And the food there this week, it was so good to have that conversation. If you do one thing this week to support the podcast, let it be joining the Discord. If you want to know how to join the Discord, reach out to us on Twitter.
Yes, you can find us on Twitter. I'm at Alice White THP for those happy places.
And I'm at Buddy_Duquesne. Duquesne is spelled DUQUESNE.
And if you want to join the Discord server, but you don't want to step anywhere near Twitter, drop us an email. You can email me at I'm alicewhitepodcast@gmail.com.
And I'm buddy.duquesne@gmail.com.
Send us an email, send us a tweet. Hit us up. We want to talk to you, and we want to hear your thoughts on not just this episode, but the whole podcast. And we really want submissions because we've got a special episode coming up.
Oh, yeah. Here being announced for the first time publicly. Our next episode is episode 20, Alice.
20 whole episodes.
Can you believe
it's very exciting.
Now, we have a little bit of a forming tradition happening here. When we got to our 10th episode, we asked for call-ins. And we did a ride design extravaganza where we challenged each other to design rides based on maybe unlikely or interesting IPs. Our next challenge in honor of Pirates of the Caribbean and its adaptation films is to adapt a ride into a film or television show or video game or some other kind of media, whatever that may be. And Alice, I think you already claimed yours, right?
Yes, I'm going to try to adapt the ride Matterhorn.
And I've decided that I'm going to show you my ongoing spec script for Big Thunder Mountain, the movie, the ride, which I'm so excited to share with you, Alice. I think you're really going to like it.
I think this is going to be really, really fun. And so we'll do ours, and then we'll take submissions live while we record. And if you've got ideas or you got things that you want us to develop, so like either submit a voicemail to us, email us your voicemails of either your idea of a cool ride that you think should be a movie, or ideas that you want to hear us develop into a movie. If you don't want to do the work, we'll help. We will
help. We are excited to help.
So yeah, send us those voicemails, reach out to us on Twitter, join our Discord, communicate with us. We really want to hear from you. We know you're out there.
Hey, Alice, speaking of out there, did you know that our listeners out there right now are probably hearing our theme music?
Our theme music, let's see. Golden Gate by the California Feetwarmers featuring Phil Alvin.
Yeah, Alice, did you know that you could find all of their music at www.californiafeetwarmers.com?
I did, and now everyone else does too. Tell me about that additional music, buddy.
Alice, if they heard additional music, chances are it was by Podington Bear, who made all of his music available on the Free Music Archive for podcasters to add to their podcasts, which is what we do with it.
Excellent.
You can find all of that work and others at freemusicarchive.org.
And if you like what you heard, be sure you subscribe and leave a review and tell your friends. Reviews help a lot, especially because we're growing this network of podcasters and theme park fans. We want to increase our exposure so we can talk to and learn from all the really fascinating, wonderful, interesting people out there.
Absolutely. Hey, Alice, thank you so much for being a great co-host and for going on this adventure through Pirates of the Caribbean with me.
Buddy, thank you so much. This was absolutely fascinating and a wonderful conversation. You're the best.
And to all our listeners, thank you for listening, and we hope you return to those happy places.